welcome to another video. So many apologies for the late update, but I was working on a new intro, which you'll see in a minute, and it took a few days, and the other days that I usually spend on recording and editing, I was a bit busy. Anyways, back to the video. Welcome everybody to Starla's Art Studio, and today I will be going over cartoon anatomy. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to be showing is how pretty much anything can be broken up into simple shapes, which makes it easier to draw. Breaking things down into simple shapes can help you kind of see it in a simpler form and just kind of help you take it one step at a time, like just the circles, the straight lines, the curved lines, anything like that. Almost acts like stepping stones or stairs to just escalate you closer and closer to complete and finished drawings. And I have my little horse drawing on the right as an example. Even though it kind of looks like that's what I'm doing here, I'm not saying that when you draw things, you just kind of take a picture and then try to trace over the exact shapes. No, you can just look at it and translate what you see directly into shapes. So anyways, looking back at the drawing, I have this little sheep country kind of curl on the left. She can also be broken down into simple shapes. And even this little orange puppy that I carved out of an orange. Alrighty, so the next thing I'm going to be showing is mainly for cartoon characters, how you can use shapes in their body types to kind of either portray a certain personality, like if they're kind of more friendly, bigger, smaller, rounder, just things like that, with shapes like circles, squares/rectangles, and triangles. So using shapes such as circles kind of have this rounder feel, which can usually be interpreted as more friendly and just kind of a softer, more, I don't know, huggable feel. Like for plushes and stuffed animals, they usually have this round, cuddly little squishy feel that just makes you feel a warm inside kind of feel. So for circles, you can kind of have, if you have a friendly or pretty jelly character, you can give them more circles in their body type, or like whether it's higher or lower. And for the squares, I do go back for the circles because I make two body types for each shape. But for the rectangles, if you have more of a stable, built-up kind of structure, like maybe if you have a protagonist, they might have this kind of secure, structured air to them, so they might have this kind of body type. It depends on what you're doing, but just depends on the personality you give your character. Okay, so the last one is triangles. Using a triangle for the body type can give your character kind of almost like a more dynamic and playful kind of look, and makes them have more movement in their body structure. Like for example, the slanted lines and the flat line in the shape of a triangle can help bring out this stable yet playful or dynamic movements in the character's design as a whole. Using different shapes can really help make your characters look different from one another. For example, if you were to make a comic or any kind of story that you illustrate, if every single character has the same body type, they kind of seem pretty similar. Well, if you make some characters taller, shorter, rounder, slimmer, it helps make your characters more interesting because it doesn't look like you just copied and pasted the same character and just changed things like the hair or clothes. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be showing is just very basic little things to keep in mind when you're drawing a character. So first off is like the shoulders after the head. Once you make the neck, if you want your character to have a neck, usually the shoulders, depending on if it's a child, if you want to emphasize the fact of having a large head or not. The torso will typically be about as wide as the head, and the shoulders will kind of just be like little circles to represent like the joints. Everywhere I draw in circles represents everywhere that would be a joint. You're pretty much doing connect the dots. Once you draw the circles, you're making lines to connect each one so you can create the limbs. Almost like if you're treating a character as a puppet, you're positioning every joint so you know how they're going to be standing. You still kind of want to have an idea of the position of your character in your head while you're placing the joints, the body, the top, bottom. If you notice, I have drawn these kind of curved lines from the middle of her body up, and I did this to kind of show where your elbows would be at any certain point if you'd rise them up. Because if you put your elbows straight down, you can kind of feel where they'd be right over your pelvis. So if you have your arms up or across, this is how far they'd be, like how long your arms are based on the rest of your body. So the last thing I'll show are some poses. I think that it's a very good idea to practice other positions, especially if you start out drawing, instead of just same just person just standing there, arms behind back if you're not good at hands, just things like that. It's good to kind of branch out and really experiment with different poses, so you kind of get a better idea of like the body, how it moves, how it looks in certain positions, and things like that. Practicing these techniques and applying them to your drawing can really help you improve. If you carry on a sketchbook, it can also add a little variety in there with your practicing. If you want to, you can also dedicate an entire page to like just poses, like if you want one with mostly sitting, standing, leaning, jumping, running, things like that. It can also help a lot. The neat little thing about really practicing and getting to know these rules for little cartoon anatomy and things like that is then you can start experimenting with them and putting your own little twist on it once you get used to it. For example, if you know the basic rules on these proportions and whatnot, you can start adjusting them, like making a smaller body, larger appendages, arms or legs, or you can make a teeny body and a larger head, or larger hands or feet or whatever. Just things like that. You can really start experimenting with it and kind of have fun with your character designs. But just make sure that you practice the original way first so you can get used to how it should be, and make sure you treat your character like their body as a 3D object so you know where each part of them is during the pose that you chose. And because this process is typically done during the sketch phase, you should have made it light, quick lines that you can easily erase if you are drawing with traditional pencil and paper. And if you'd like to practice with what I'm showing on the screen, you can get a paper, pencil, or whatever you have to draw with, and you can just follow along with what I'm doing. One more thing I would like to add about treating the character like a 3D object is to kind of apply perspective to your drawing. For example, the one I have right now, since this little ballerina girl is at an angle, one of the straight arms will be closer to the viewer, so the circles may seem larger, so the hand will just be larger than the other one, which is going to the back. So using perspective, you can just make it larger, and because they're just kind of back, they won't be as far out as if the person was standing right in front of you and had their arms just straight out. It would be at an angle, so it wouldn't be like really long. It would be kind of angled back and look smaller, just like how most things in the back. If it's smaller, if it's forward, it's bigger. So one of the last few little drawing demonstration sketches I'm showing is this kind of little fighting pose almost. So if you noticed, I made this kind of S shape from the bottom of the head around the neck down to one of the legs. This can help show how the body is supported, like helps bring out this kind of movement and the character's position. Okay, so the last bit is just some other positions that I did. So you can kind of just look through these and so I'd really encourage you to try practicing with different positions, things like that, to really help with character design, proportions, anatomy. And if you really need to, you can even use actual people positions, just as some reference materials. Well, thanks for watching to the end. Hope you learned something from it. Maybe you got some time to practice, or maybe you got some little inspiration from it. So I'm glad you spent some time to watch the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back for the next one. Bye!